Welcome to the Maverick Ag 2.0 webinar series. I can't even remember what number this is, but to tell you the truth, there's been a couple month hiatus here. Obviously, we keep rolling them out, but I don't only record these every once in a while, so it might be a little green on this one. But I guess like, share, subscribe, ring the bell if you're on YouTube. Check out maverickag.com, as well as while you're on the website, check out some of our product listings. Maverick Ag 2.0 got launched. We were a month early in getting some of the products up on the website, and we'll be continually adding. We've got the core services we've always had on the financial side, but we've also got a product mix that includes some succession, transition, as well as some risk management on the farm from key performance financial metrics, stuff like that. And then obviously business plans and other aspects. And then obviously the Deal Guard product, which is probably our best selling one, which is the benchmarking for equipment deals. So it's going across Western Canada and seeing all the deals that are being made from some of our clients and aggregating the data and giving you kind of a leg up when you go into the salesman's office. So all of those products are available. Check out the website. Also, Farmer Coach. Check out the website, farmercoach.ca. The November cohorts are most likely already launched by the time this comes out, but we will be continually taking on lists and continually throwing more and more into the program. So we want to hear from you, and we want to hear and be able to fill those lists so that we know how many programs we can actually bring you. Now, today is going to be a favorite topic. And honestly, every blog we write, we track the metrics. And the number one blogs that I write and the number one discussions that Christian and I have on The Truth About Ag all revolve around equipment. The big, sexy, shiny piece of green, red, yellow, whatever combine, whatever tractor sitting on your front lawn. And that's where I'm going to go today. I'm going to go into the discussion on iron disease. And that's what we call it. Iron disease, because it's the second largest expense for most farms on the income statement. If you're growing pulse, it might even be your largest expense. So it does have a detrimental effect on a lot of farms, and it's also the leading cause of poor management on a lot of farms. So we're going to discuss that. But I want to start with a bit of a story, and I'm going to give a shout out, as I like to do on these. So Mr. Dean Klippenstein, which is an MNP partner in Regina, he was the first one that pushed this theory of labor power machinery through the management side and got it into their financial statements. So if you're running financial statements with Myers, you'll understand what LPM or labor power machinery means. It is now a benchmarkable number. And whether that's from a percentage of revenue standpoint or a per acre standpoint, it doesn't matter. It can be benchmarked across geographies, and it can be benchmarked across farms. The other thing I love about it, it has nothing to do with wealth. If grandpa gave you all the land and you're loaded, that doesn't make you a good manager. That means you just hit the luck of the draw in the lottery. So it is a way that I can take farms and actually benchmark the management styles of every single farm to each other. The other aspect is, it doesn't matter how you want to run your operation. Do you want to be equipment heavy? Do you want to be labor heavy? Do you want to do all custom work? It doesn't matter which way you go. I can still benchmark you, and it's going to show which way is the most advantageous and efficient for your operation. So it's even come to the point where I'm on a couple boards that are looking at standards in Canada, and it has become a benchmarking standard, much like a debt service or a working capital ratio. The labor power machinery ratio, if you don't know it, figure it out. And what I mean by that is reach out to Maverick Ag. There's your solo plug for the day, but also understand what the number means. And I'm sure if you Google it, I'm sure if you look it up, have discussions at the coffee shop, someone's going to have that number and how to calculate it. So it is an important factor. Now, getting more into the basis on the financial side, there's two main areas that past accounting firms as well as Maverick have found are the biggest differentiators on farms. One's revenue. Don't get me wrong, guys. There's farms that have incredible dirt and are really good managers and agronomists and can just grow grain. And not just in yield, but they're better marketers. I mean, they're finding the top 5 to top 20% compared to the rest of the industry are about $100 an acre higher on revenue. Now, I'm not an agronomist, and I've said that multiple times, so I'm not going to go into that side today, but just know that there is room to move on the revenue side considerably. Now, that used to be the number one area. I am not sure it is anymore. And what I mean by that is, based on our metrics that we've seen over the last even 5 to 3 years, labor power machinery metric has compounded exponentially, and we see it. I mean, we see it in the cost of equipment. We see it in the per hour cost to be competitive on labor. We see it in overhead, whether it's carbon tax, whether it's, drying and all those additional costs that we're now incurring that we never did a decade ago. So labor, power, machinery has jumped. And what I'm finding is the large differentiator. You're seeing the top 5%, then you're seeing another 15 to 20% after that, and then you're seeing the bottom, 80, 75%. And there's a big distinction. The gap has widened considerably. And you're going to say, oh, it's size. No, it's not size. I've got really good big farms, and I've seen really bad big farms. And I mean, I can go on X, and if I see a big farm and I know how many acres they are, and I see 30,000 acres at 10 combines, sorry, their labor, power, machinery number is going to be high. And I know that because I know the cost of a combine, and I know divided by acre, and I know it has no bearing on their wealth. It has a bearing on the amortization, the cost of that equipment, the trade value of that equipment. I mean, there's a million factors. So labor, power, machinery almost gets fun when you start looking at pictures, because I can tell you, and don't look across the fence and see a brand new combine and say, oh, their LPM's too high. Nope. It has nothing to do with the quality. It has to do with the quantity. And I'm going to go into detail on that. So the big one, and maybe we'll go there right now. So we're going to start there. So quality versus quantity. And I'm going to start with the quality side. So obviously we've seen new machinery costs. I mean, on our benchmarks, an X9 combine over the last 3-4 years, gone up about 140%. That's the cost increase of 4 years ago, if you bought a new 790 versus today buying a new X9, and there is an upgrade value there, don't get me wrong, but you're looking at 143% increase in cost. And to tell you the truth, the efficiency ratings anywhere from 30 to 60. They don't match. So there's number one. So quality wise, I mean, you're seeing that the used machinery costs, I think we're going to see a decrease, I hope. And all factors are pointing to yes, based on what I'm seeing coming out of the US on, auction sales and what the discussions are in Canada of how many used machines are going to be on lots and the carrying cost of capital. And then the last one is wants versus needs. And what I mean by that is a decade ago or 2 decades ago, the baby boomers, when they were just trying to pay the bills, they had needs. So a piece of equipment needed to be upgraded because it didn't work anymore, or it wasn't relevant, or you couldn't use it for some reason. That's a need. Today, I get calls nonstop of wants. And wants can be anything from, harvest dragged on, I really have to have this combine. Well, no, that's a want. Or spring, we didn't get the crop seeded, I need to grab a Velmar quick and get it in. That's a want. I'm sorry, but most farms would believe that's a need. That's not a need. We had a plan in the budget. Here's where we're at. And most times what I found is those one-offs, they end up costing in the end, because maybe you do get the crop in, but then when I look over your neighbors, they got the same crop in and it took them 3 extra days. Was that worth was that worth going out and buying a Velmar? Or on the equipment side, you added 2 combines and you got done 2 days earlier, and yet we're still into the fall here, and I got guys combining right now, and yes, maybe there was a yield loss, but does that yield loss make up for a $1.2 million combine? Because that's the discussions you have to have. And farmers have really short memories, I find, and they forget that, cost today, maybe you didn't even put anything down up front, but that combine's now over 7 years. So you've just destroyed your LPM number for the next 6 years. So it's not just the effect on that 1 year crop, it's the effect going forward, unless you're paying cash, which then you're pulling down your present value of cash at a 5% GIC rate. I mean, there's a million discussions we can have from a finance standpoint. The other one is technology. Guys like to say, oh, tech, I need this, I need that, I got to switch to this. Unless you're already making that deal, that's not an excuse either. And don't get me wrong, we are going to see tech in the future that does warrant this, whether it's spot spray, whether it's, the See and Spray systems, any of that stuff where I can see a cost savings. It's no different when sectional control and variable rate came out. I can tell you the percentage ROI on that on our farm to the dollar to the acre, and it makes up for the cost. That's an ROI return. But massaging seats, not the same return. So we've seen that. And then the other one, I mean, when we run these deals, guys, this isn't rocket science. All we're doing is we're running the deal based on your working capital position. So how much additional cash flow are going to go out if you make this deal and do a new machine? What's the difference in your loan payments? That's cash. So that's coming out of working capital. I need to know that going forward, because if you're tight already and we add $100,000 a year worth of payments, that has an effect. The next one's your debt service. And we talk about this all the time, is those additional principal payments, interest rate. I mean, you probably have your machine locked in at 3.5 right now, and you're going to go to a 4.5 or a 5. That all has an effect. So what's the debt serviceability on this? What's it do to your debt service? If land came up next year and we bought this combine, are you now out of the running to buy the land? Because you can buy a lot of land at $1 million on a debt service over 30 years versus a combine over 7 years. There's a significant change in the debt serviceability. And then obviously the last one, which is just what's the negotiation tactic? So we're seeing, I mean, if you were to see the brand loyalty that we see today, and what I mean by that is buying market share is a considerable discount for almost every operation. So whether it's Claws buying out Deere, Deere buying out Claws, Deere buying out Case, Case buying out Deere, any of those swaps, you're seeing massive deals because of the purchasing market share. And that to me is wrong. Because honestly, to tell you the truth, if I have brand loyalty and I come back to you time and time again and don't switch brands, I would expect that discount. Well, that's not how it works. So a lot of our benchmarks are showing that the brand loyalty can be upwards of 100 to 200 grand a machine, which is ludicrous, but that's what the data shows, and data doesn't lie. The other one is hours on machine versus years of machine. So a lot of guys have come to me and said, if I park this machine because it's our good tractor, so I don't want to use it, so I'll keep the hours down. You're correct. The hour cost on machinery is huge, whether it's a tractor, sprayer, combine. But to assume that you're losing a year and not losing a value percentage is wrong. So what I mean by that is all of a sudden your 2022 turns into a 2021. Even if you added 0 hours, there's a drop in value, and we all know that. What that number is, I can actually know it through our benchmarks, and it's not as small as you think it is. So what we found is utilization. So using that tractor on not only the drill, but also the cart is more feasible than holding it and not putting hours on it. So there's your answer, guys. And then the other one is, what's the upgrade values? So what I mean by that is, like I was talking about the 790 to an X9 or the Claws, let's say you're going up a model or up a series or up horsepower. What is that value worth? So we've actually gone through and had the details of, here's what each of these machines brand new is worth. Here's the upgrade values. Here's the horsepower. Here's how much they depreciate over 1 year based on the Iron Guide searches of 1-year-old machines, and dictated the number of a depreciation factor, of a real depreciation factor, not just a percentage that the accountants put on at year end. And that's the numbers that we make our deals based on. So there's a lot of data analysis that goes into this stuff. And it's based on the quality of machines. And it's based on that side. And then obviously the last one is, if you're going to go from 3 machines to 2 because the horsepower is higher, what's the fuel efficiency increases? What's the labor cost jump? What's the logistical changes? There's a whole bunch of qualitative that turn into quantitative factors, but that analysis is a lot further than most farms go. Most farms just look at the pretty color and let's add it on. And I say most, and people will think I'm generalizing. I'm not. The majority of farms have no idea what the cost of production is, and that's stats out of TPAP, as well as out of the USDA, or not the USDA, but out of some of the surveys that have been put out over social media. So, I mean, you're seeing that. So from that standpoint, that's the quality discussion. Now, if we run into the quantity discussion, this is where it gets interesting, is that if you want to truly lower your LPM, you need to get more acres per economic unit. And what I mean by that is, and I've told the story and we've told it on the podcast before, is our last expansion, we grew by 25% and we added a rock picker. And for us, 25% was about 10,000 acres. When you can do that, it considerably drops your LPM costs to where we went from a higher range LPM to one of the lowest I have, and probably one of the lowest in the MNP and the Maverick benchmarks. So from that standpoint, expansion actually lowered our cost of production, which increased our profit per acre. And guys are going to say, well, what about the land costs? And what about the interest costs on your loans? You're correct. They went up, but nowhere near the rate that the LPM came down. So LPM dropped by between, I want to say, $50 to $60, and our land building finance costs went up by 11. So we're still 40 to the good. So economic units matter. And this is where it gets real interesting, because we've had these conversations, and I used to public speak and talk about 24-hour seating and, how we run the logistics on our combine crew and everything else. And the biggest pushback was, oh, in my area, that doesn't work. I got gumbo soil, or it gets too cold too fast, or this or that. And I'm going to say they're excuses, but in some areas, you're right. You're most likely correct. But one of the joys of having the coaching program is that we've been able to pull a lot of data out of the guys and get some truth. And what I mean by that is we ran an exercise and we said, okay, in the perfect year, what day do you start seeding and what day would you want to be done? And I mean perfect conditions, perfect everything. If you could pick the date, what would it be? And they came out and most of them had a 24-hour or 24-day window. That's the window from this date to this date. I could do it every year perfect. That would be the days. And then I had them go through and give me their numbers on the perfect day. What does it look like for acres on a drill? And I mean average. I'm not looking for your highest day. I'm not looking for your lowest day. I'm looking for the average per day that you can do acres with the drill setup you have today. The average number came in at 13. So don't get me wrong. There's lots of rain delays and lots of other stuff, but that gives you an 11-day window of rain. I've gone back over our last 10-year period, only happened 1 year, 2019. So in that standpoint, I look at this and I say, okay, you're over equipped. And they're going to argue and they're going to say no. And I'm going to say, yep. And then I'm going to benchmark those numbers against a farm that does 24-hour or a farm that does something else. And you're going to see the variances. And that's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking to prove you wrong or prove you right. I'm looking to have those discussions to open up the mindset that, oh, this is possible. And by the way, the harvest ones for the exact same exercise, 45 days, and most guys were done in 19. Now, if I look at this year, yeah, our goal was 40 days and we did it closer to 50. Does that mean we're going to go out and buy 2 more combines because we didn't get done in 40? No. What that means is that this is an anomaly year. Crop's still off. We didn't lose much on the yield side. This is our perfect economic unit size to have the cost structure going into 2025, which isn't looking so sexy right now, that we want. So you got that standpoint. Again, when I talk processes, what kind of hours are we running? Are we running 24? Are we running 12? Are your guys doing 16-hour shifts? Because if they are, I promise you right now, their efficiency goes significantly down, anywhere close to 16. And it's proven. Psychological tests, it is proven that a 16-hour day is not only unsafe, but the efficiency metrics of your crew go down considerably. And you compound those day after day after day after day, it gets worse. So those farms that go, you know what, the wind's down today, we got to go till 2 a.m. because the wind's going to stay up and it's going to keep dry. We got to go till 2 a.m. because tomorrow, they're talking rain. And then all of a sudden it doesn't rain tomorrow and you do it again and you do it again. Those farms are detrimental to their employees and it's unsafe. And honestly, it's just inefficient. So knowing that stuff and having a set process in place is quite important. The other one is logistics. You would be amazed what efficiencies you can find in the logistics side of your business versus the equipment side. And by that, I mean, are you timing your fills? Are you having extra guys on the logistics crew to make sure that the equipment's getting fed in the quickest amount possible and how you do it? That logistical effectiveness has increased our farm tenfold. And that goes right down to the sprayer of having batch fills and 7-minute fills and all that stuff is the efficiency for us. I mean, I've told the story a million times is our sprayer went from 36% efficient to 54. Well, on a $1.1 million sprayer, that's considerably using more value, about 200 to 300 grand worth of value on that sprayer. Plus, as we grow, it probably eliminates the need for an additional jump to another sprayer at one point, which saves us the entire $1.1 million sprayer. So those are the discussions you have to have as a farm on the number of units side. And then the last one's data. All of these machines, if you're buying brand new or you're buying anywhere within the last 5 years, the data you can pull off your machines is incredible. And not just for your own considerations, but for your efficiency metrics. So we pull everything right off the drills and right off the combines, right post-harvest, post-seeding. That's my job. I get to do it from 4.5 hours away because JD Ops allows me to. But it tells me the throughput of the combines. It tells me how many acres per hour. It tells me which drivers are the most effective. So with what we're finding on the larger machines and the 50-foot heads, it's uncomfortable to drive the speed you need to in order to keep the combines full. So the tech and the self-driving and the autopath and everything else, those are important features because you need to trust the combine. And what we're finding is a lot of employees don't trust the combine. So when you pull back on that lever, every time you pull back, you create an inefficiency. And the joy of the data is I know how many times you pull back. I know who pulls back. I know how many hours per acre per combine. I I know the metrics for each individual. So all of a sudden, we're going to start having discussions on who should be sitting on combines and who should be sitting on secondary equipment and harrowing and dirt work and spraying, because we need the most efficient individuals on those combines, or else we're not utilizing them correctly. And what I mean by that is they need to be running at that 80 to 110% all the time, not only for grain loss, but for efficiencies, acres per hour, throughput. And we're starting to find the data is becoming really compelling on a lot of those things. It's no different. I can benchmark an X9 with a 50-foot head versus a 45. And I can tell you 100% if you're running X9s, you need 50-foot heads. And that data is there to show it. And then the last one is how many, multiple fertilizer applications. Are you floating? Are you top dressing? Are you getting fertilizer out of the drills so you can get more acres per fill, which then increases your efficiencies and allows you to do more acres per drill? Like, there's a million discussions we can go into on logistics and the variances and everything else. And the quality and quantity of equipment both matter. But I promise you, the numbers show that quality or quantity matters first. So we've hit the LP, we've hit the machinery side really quick. I just want to touch on the labor and the overhead side, which won't quite be as much. What we're finding is labor now. I'm winning the battle. And what I mean by that is farms are starting to hire more. They're starting to get more third-party labor, some experts, some individuals. Now we have to learn how to get a return out of those individuals. If you're just buying operators and you got to give them a raise every year, and after 10 years, they're making pretty close to what a lot of my ownership pulls out of the farm, you have issues, because where's the return? An employee, in order to get a raise, needs to grow. So giving a raise just because you're afraid they're going to quit, that's not good enough. We're to the point now where you have to see a return, just like corporations have to see a return from their employees. So what I mean by that is, are they taking on more roles, more responsibilities, more decision making? Are they leading crews? Are they managing people? Are they taking stuff off your plate? Because that's a return. And if you're not seeing that and you're paying them more to do the same job, you're going to have issues going forward. And then that's what we're seeing is right now we got a benchmark of, let's call it 2,000 to 2,500 acres per employee or per member working. So even though it's a family farm with 4 family members, that's enough for an 8 to 10,000 acre farm. Now, if we go the hours, it's about 1.25 hours per acre. And I'm actually starting to see some really good farms get down to the 1 hours per acre. And what you'll find is the farms that know how to get their employees buy-in and the efficiency metrics, as you grow, your employees become more efficient because they're taking on more responsibilities, and you will actually see that number drop. And I have the benchmarks for it, is that the larger scale farms actually work less. So our hours per full-time guy are going down. Do we have lots of part-time guys that come out? Yes. But I can promise you that if you look at our hours per acre, it is down year over year, every year since I've come to HGV in 2019. And we've grown every year. And then the last one is just the roles and responsibilities. You have to have specific roles and responsibilities for your team, or else you got a lot of people sitting around having coffee every single morning. And for us, that's a deal killer. So what I mean by that is a lot of guys will say, well, I don't know how you're so efficient, or I don't know why our numbers aren't working. Well, we send out the Voxers the night before of what you're supposed to do to avoid the coffee break in the morning. So we have, at peak season, let's call it 20 to 30 employees. Let's call it 20. 20 employees come to the main yard every morning to figure out what they're doing. They sit down, they have a coffee, and you waste an hour. That's 20 hours. And during peak season, you're working 7 days a week. It's 140 hours. Let's say you pay an employee 30 to 40 bucks an hour. You do the math, but that's about $5,000 a week of wasted labor costs, when you could have sent out a quick message the night before, you're going here, and they go straight to their job. So it's stuff like that where we found the efficiencies are huge when it comes to people. Now, does that mean you never have to meet as a group? No, but that does set a precedent that here's the process. We meet once a week. This is what we go through, projects, what needs to get done, all the issues, and then you go. And then the last one, overhead. This one never even used to be a conversation because it was too low. But honestly, the last few years, I've also seen it escalate. And if it escalates $10, that's $10 that I just don't see a return from anywhere. And some of it'll be the grain drying, and some of it'll be the aeration costs and the utilities and the carbon tax and everything else going up. And that, you're right, those are uncontrollable, risk increases. But when I see a farmer put up a large shop and his utility bill doubles, or I see guys just go on trips and travel and entertainment, taking their teams and paying for hotel rooms and big meals and all of this stuff in a good year, go nuts. Yes, it's still costing you, but you know what? You don't feel it as bad. But now I'm starting to see the farms, since they've started it, they don't want to stop doing it because their employees will notice. All of a sudden now we're spending $10 to $15 an acre on these overhead costs. Well, our margin is probably tight enough that we're only looking at a $30 to $50 margin for 2025 on a lot of farms. Well, you just cut that back to 25. And maybe that doesn't even cover your principal payments. So, I mean, from that standpoint, all costs matter in tight years. So, again, thank you for listening. If you want more information on some of our product mix that utilizes some of the stuff I talked about today and has discussions on some of the things I talked about, please reach out, maverickag.com. Feel free to ask questions, as well as we'll send you our product mix, and they're on the website. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and thanks for listening.